What if everything you thought you knew about the Romani people, often called Gypsies, was wrong? For centuries, the Romani have been shrouded in myth and stereotype, portrayed as wandering outsiders with no known homeland. But what if the truth about their origins has been hidden all along, waiting to be uncovered? Thanks to advances in modern genetics, scientists have traced the ancient roots of the Romani people, revealing an origin story more fascinating and complex than anyone could have imagined. In today's video, we'll explore the surprising genetic discoveries about the Romani people. Where did they really come from? How did they spread across continents? And what does this mean for how we understand their history, culture, and identity? This is a story of migration, survival, and adaptation, and it stretches far beyond Europe, all the way to the Indian subcontinent. We'll break down how genetic studies identified their place of origin, follow their incredible migration through time, and see how they adapted to new cultures along the way. We'll also take a hard look at the challenges they faced in Europe, challenges that shaped how their story was recorded or ignored for generations. And finally, we'll discuss why these discoveries are so important today, not just for science, but for how we think about cultural identity and the fight against stereotypes. So, whether you've heard bits and pieces of the Romani story before or are learning about them for the first time, stick with us. You're about to discover the truth behind one of the most misunderstood groups in history. And trust me, it's a story you won't forget. For centuries, the origins of the Romani people were misunderstood. In the absence of clear historical records, myths and stereotypes filled the gaps. One of the most persistent misconceptions is that the Romani people came from Egypt. In fact, that's how the term Gypsies originated, an inaccurate label based on the false belief that they were Egyptian migrants. Unfortunately, this label stuck and continues to be used today, though it has no basis in fact. Another misconception is that the Romani are simply a European nomadic group with no specific homeland. Their movement from one region to another gave rise to the idea that they had no real origin story. For a long time, the Romani people were seen only as travelers, outsiders, and entertainers, rather than as a distinct cultural group with deep historical roots. This perception has shaped how they've been treated and mistreated throughout history. Part of the reason for this confusion is that the Romani people have historically relied on oral traditions rather than written records. Because of this, much of their story has been interpreted through the lens of the societies they lived in, often leading to biased or incomplete narratives. Scholars and historians often made assumptions about their past based on what little they could observe, focusing on the Romani's movement and way of life, without understanding their origins. But modern science has changed everything. Thanks to genetic studies, we now know that the Romani people do, in fact, have a specific place of origin. And spoiler alert, it's not in Europe. This discovery has not only corrected long-standing historical misunderstandings, but also opened a door to a more accurate and respectful understanding of who the Romani people truly are. It's time to put aside the myths and look at what science reveals. So, where did the Romani people really come from? According to cutting-edge genetic research, the Romani people trace their roots all the way back to northern India. That's right, the people often thought of as nomads in Europe are, in fact, descendants of ancient populations from regions like Punjab and Rajasthan. Genetic markers found in modern Romani populations match those found in Indian communities, revealing a shared ancestry that dates back roughly 500 years. This discovery is groundbreaking because it connects the Romani to a specific origin story, one that had been lost to history for centuries. The story doesn't stop there. The Romani's ancestors didn't stay in India. Around 500 CE, they began a long migration westward, moving through Persia, modern-day Iran, and the Middle East. Their journey continued through the Byzantine Empire, and by the 9th to 10th centuries, they had begun to settle in Europe. The earliest Romani communities in Europe were found in Greece and the Balkans, and from there, they spread to other regions like Spain, France, and Central Europe. One of the most fascinating aspects of this migration story is that the Romani didn't just carry their genes, they also carried their language. Linguists have found that the Romani language shares many similarities with Sanskrit, the ancient language of India. These linguistic connections provide further proof of the Romani's Indian origins, reinforcing what the genetic data has already revealed. But there's more. As the Romani traveled across different regions, they mixed with local populations. Today, the genetic makeup of Romani people is a blend of South Asian and European ancestry, reflecting their long journey and the many communities they encountered along the way. This diversity within their DNA tells a powerful story of movement, adaptation, and survival, one that's both scientifically fascinating and culturally significant. When the Romani people arrived in Europe, their experience was shaped not just by their migration, but by the harsh realities of discrimination. From the moment they set foot on European soil, they were treated as outsiders. Their distinct appearance, language, and customs made them stand out, and many European societies were quick to marginalize them. Over the centuries, the Romani people faced persecution, exclusion, and deep-rooted prejudice that would follow them wherever they went. One of the biggest challenges for the Romani people was that they didn't conform to the norms of European societies. They lived in close-knit communities, often moving from place to place, which went against the more settled, agricultural lifestyles of their neighbors. As a result, they were often viewed with suspicion and mistrust. This mistrust turned into systemic discrimination, with many Romani communities being forced into poverty and denied access to education, housing, and healthcare. Even today, the Romani people face challenges in Europe. Many continue to experience social exclusion and are often the targets of racist attitudes and policies. Their unique cultural practices, which should be celebrated, have instead been used as reasons to isolate them further. But despite these challenges, the Romani people have maintained their cultural identity. They've preserved their traditions, music, and language, passing them down through generations. Their story is one of incredible resilience, a testament to the strength of a people who have survived centuries of hardship and still hold on to their heritage. So, why does all of this matter? For one, it helps us correct the misconceptions that have long surrounded the Romani people. Knowing that they originated in India and migrated across continents gives us a clearer picture of who they are and where they come from. This discovery is not just about science. It's about acknowledging a history that has been overlooked for too long. These genetic findings also remind us of something important. Migration is part of human history. The Romani story is just one example of how people have moved across the globe for centuries, adapting to new environments and blending cultures along the way. Understanding this helps us appreciate the diversity that makes humanity so rich and interconnected. Finally, these discoveries give the Romani people a sense of pride and belonging. Knowing their true origins can be empowering, helping them reclaim their narrative in a world that has often tried to silence them. This is more than just a story about genetics. It's a step toward building a more inclusive future, where every group's history is recognized and respected. While the Romani people share a common origin in northern India, their genetic journey didn't end there. What makes the Romani population so unique is the diversity that developed over centuries of migration. As they moved across different regions of Europe, they mixed with local populations, creating distinct subgroups with subtle genetic differences. Scientists studying Romani genetics today have discovered that different Romani communities show varying degrees of European ancestry, depending on where their ancestors settled. For example, Romani groups in Eastern Europe, like those in Romania and Hungary, tend to have higher levels of South Asian ancestry, reflecting a more isolated genetic history. In contrast, communities in Western Europe, such as Spain and France, show a higher influence from local European populations. This variation tells the story of how Romani groups adapted to the different cultures, climates, and societies they encountered. Some Romani groups remained relatively isolated, while others engaged in frequent contact and intermarriage with non-Romani neighbors. This diversity is not just about genetics. It reflects the flexibility and resilience of Romani people in the face of constantly changing environments. The ability to maintain their cultural identity, while also absorbing elements of other cultures, is part of what makes the Romani experience so rich and unique. But it also complicates the way we think about their identity. Instead of a single, unified Romani people, we're talking about many different communities, each with its own history, traditions, and adaptations. This diversity challenges the stereotypes that view the Romani people as a monolithic group. It reminds us that identity is fluid, shaped by movement, interaction, and change. Understanding this diversity helps scientists and historians gain a clearer picture of the Romani experience. And for the Romani people, it's a powerful reminder that they are not defined by where they are today, but by the long, complex journey they have taken throughout history. Genetic research doesn't just tell us about history. It also has practical implications for the future, especially in healthcare. Studies have found that some Romani communities have higher risks of specific genetic conditions, largely due to centuries of living in small, isolated groups. This phenomenon, known as the founder effect, happens when a small population splits off from a larger one and becomes genetically distinct over time. In some cases, this leads to a higher occurrence of rare, inherited diseases within those communities. One example is certain types of congenital heart disease or metabolic disorders, which have been found at higher rates in some Romani populations. Unfortunately, because many Romani communities have been marginalized and excluded from healthcare systems, these conditions often go undiagnosed or untreated. The lack of access to medical care is compounded by social stigma and poverty, making it harder for Romani people to receive the help they need. However, recent research offers hope. By studying the genetics of Romani populations, scientists can identify risk factors earlier and help develop better, more targeted healthcare strategies. Public health experts are starting to collaborate with Romani communities to raise awareness about genetic conditions and improve access to medical care. In some cases, Romani groups are even working with scientists to design healthcare solutions that are culturally appropriate, ensuring that their unique needs are respected. This research is a reminder of how genetics and healthcare are deeply connected. It's not just about identifying diseases. It's about understanding the historical and social factors that influence health. And most importantly, it's about creating a future where the Romani people have access to the same level of care and support as everyone else. Genetics may reveal risks, but it also opens the door to better solutions that can help Romani communities live healthier, longer lives. Today, many Romani people are working hard to preserve their heritage and challenge the stereotypes that have followed them for centuries. While discrimination is still a reality, the Romani are increasingly reclaiming their narrative, telling their own stories, reviving their traditions, and celebrating their culture with pride. The revelation of their genetic roots in India has been a powerful source of identity for many Romani people, giving them a deeper connection to their ancient past. One area where this cultural revival is especially vibrant is in music and art. Romani music has had a profound influence on genres across Europe, from flamenco in Spain to folk music in Eastern Europe. These musical traditions aren't just entertainment, they're an expression of identity, resilience, and pride. In recent years, Romani musicians, artists, and filmmakers have taken center stage, using their platforms to challenge stereotypes and raise awareness about the beauty of their culture. Language revival is another important part of this movement. The Romani language, which has roots in Sanskrit, has been passed down through generations, but in some places, it was at risk of disappearing due to social pressures to assimilate. Now, many Romani communities are reviving their language as a way to strengthen their cultural identity and keep their traditions alive for future generations. At the same time, Romani activists are fighting for equal rights and pushing back against discrimination. They're working to change public perceptions and promote inclusion in education, employment, and healthcare. These efforts are helping to break down barriers and create opportunities for Romani people to thrive in modern society. What makes this movement even more powerful is that it's happening on the Romani people's terms. They are telling their own stories, whether through art, music, activism, or education, and showing the world that their identity is something to be proud of, not something to hide. The discovery of their genetic origins isn't just a piece of history, it's a tool for empowerment, helping the Romani people shape a better future while honoring their past. So, what does the story of the Romani people teach us? It's a story that stretches across continents and centuries, beginning in the heart of India and unfolding across Europe. It's a story of migration, survival, and adaptation, one that defies stereotypes and challenges the way we think about identity. Through the lens of genetics, we've seen how their journey began in northern India, how they spread across the Middle East and Europe, and how they evolved into one of the most diverse and resilient cultural groups in the world. But this story is about more than just history. It's about understanding the present, how the challenges the Romani people face today are shaped by centuries of exclusion, and how knowing their true origins can help combat stereotypes and foster a sense of pride. It's also a reminder that migration is part of human history. The Romani experience shows us how cultures mix, evolve, and adapt over time, and how identity is never static but always changing. The genetic discoveries we've explored today are about more than just science. They're about recognition. Recognition of the Romani people's history, their contributions to society, and their right to tell their own story. For the Romani, knowing their origins is a way to reclaim what was lost, a way to connect with a past that had been buried by misunderstanding and prejudice. As we move forward, it's important that we listen to and amplify the voices of Romani communities. Their story isn't over, it's still being written. And with the right understanding, support, and respect, the future for the Romani people can be one of pride, inclusion, and empowerment. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If this video gave you a new perspective, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content on history, culture, and the discoveries that shape our world. And tell us, what surprised you the most about the Romani origins? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.